A few days ago, the new official trailer for Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey was released online, and if you saw my breakdown of it, you'll know that I thought the trailer was one of the very best from this year, and one that gave us a fantastic new look at Nolan's latest film. There's been a lot of weird criticism online surrounding it, and I will touch on that in this video briefly, but I genuinely don't understand the extent of it because I thought Nolan and Universal did a great job at upping the excitement for it. For a main trailer, this is exactly what I wanted and expected from Nolan and co, giving us more of the fantastical elements, more of the story and the emotion, and more of the iconic scenes from Homer's epic brought to life for a modern adaptation. So in this video, I'm going to be giving you my extended thoughts on the trailer and the reasons why I think the film is looking like another classic from Christopher Nolan. Before I get into it though, if you want to keep up to date on any of my content surrounding Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey film, then don't forget to support this upload by giving it a like rating, subscribing to the channel, and turning on your notifications. But without further ado, let's dive into the new trailer for Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey. So pulling off The Odyssey was always going to be a mammoth task, and director Christopher Nolan has never pretended otherwise. In his Stephen Colbert interview, he flat out admitted that this was the most difficult project he's ever attempted, and he talked openly about how Matt Damon and the rest of the cast were pushed to their absolute limits to bring this world to life. That's the kind of statement that sets expectations sky high, and I think this new trailer is actually able to meet that. It delivers on multiple levels, and for me, it's the strongest trailer I've seen this year so far. What really hits first is the story direction, as this isn't just a glossy retelling of Homer's epic, it's a Nolan-esque psychological descent into myth, memory, and the emotional way of Odysseus' journey. You can feel the intensity baked into every frame, and what I think stands out in the director's adaptation is how clearly the trailer signals a multi-strand narrative. We're not simply following Matt Damon's Odysseus from Troy to Ithaca, as we're also thrown into Tom Holland's tense, desperate search for answers as Telemachus, and we're further shown the grief, isolation, and quiet heartbreak that Anne Hathaway brings to Penelope back home. Nolan appears to be weaving multiple threads together across different timelines and perspectives, and that lines up perfectly with everything we've seen so far. From Telemachus wrestling with his identity, Penelope fighting to hold her world together, and Odysseus battling both the sea and himself. Now, fragmented storytelling has always been one of Nolan's sharpest tools because it lets him explore time, memory, and identity in a way that forces the audience to pay attention. And applying that approach to the Odyssey feels inevitable because the original poem is one of the earliest examples of non-linear storytelling. Odysseus isn't just a wandering hero, he's a husband, father, and a myth whose absence reshapes the lives of everyone connected to him. By cutting between different narrative threads, the film can highlight the emotional cost of his journey and build tension across time, something which Nolan especially excels at. And that's why this trailer feels so exciting to me, as it looks like he's modernized the epic without losing its soul and preserved its complexity while emphasizing that heroism isn't just about adventure. It's about the endurance, loyalty, and the slow grinding passage of time that defines who we become. Another thing that absolutely floored me in this new trailer is how confidently Nolan tackles the fantastical elements of Homer's The Odyssey. This was one of the biggest question marks going in because Nolan's entire filmmaking identity is built on realism, practicality, and grounding the impossible in something tactile. He's the director who will flip a real truck, build a rotating hallway, or crash an actual plane rather than rely on digital shortcuts. So naturally, some people wondered whether that approach would clash with a story filled with monsters, gods, and supernatural landscapes. But based on what we've seen in the new trailer, for me, that concern has mostly evaporated. Nolan seems to have found this perfect middle ground where the mythic creatures and supernatural forces feel grand and visually astonishing, yet still believable enough to instill a real sense of fear. The small glimpse we got of Scylla and the Charybdis whirlpool, for example, is both brief and chilling, handling it with a sense of terrifying scale. I don't think it's a CGI whirlpool, as I think Nolan has shot real and smaller scale experiments, composing them into the frame we see on film. Regardless of how he has pulled that off, it's shot in a way that makes you question how much of it was practical because it feels and looks so seamless. The Lestrygonians also appear in some quick, brutal flashes as towering figures that move through smoke, tossing Odysseus' men aside as if they were ants. These are real performers, and how Nolan has made that look so believable in the frames is just superb. The blocking of those shots gives them a horrifying weight, as if Nolan is shooting a historical battle rather than a fantasy encounter. The underworld sequence is also very striking, giving us muted colours, drifting embers, and footage that feels more psychological than supernatural. And then there's the extended look we got at the Cyclops Polyphemus. Nolan only gives us a small fragment of this sequence, but we get a great shot of him holding one of Odysseus' men and another of him pulling someone off screen to eat them. Bill Irwin's performance in makeup and costume and the way it's all framed makes it feel ancient, monstrous, and completely real. And what ties all of these fantastical moments together is the way Nolan refuses to oversaturate the imagery or drown it in lots of VFX. He's clearly using some digital effects, but they're integrated so cleanly into the practical environments that you start questioning where the real ends and where the artificial begins. That's the magic of his approach, as he's not stripping the fantastical elements down, but he's also not indulging in too much glossy spectacle. Instead, he's using clever framing, blocking, lighting, and scale to give these mythic encounters a sense of authenticity. It's the kind of visual approach that makes the impossible feel like it belongs in the real world, and that's exactly why these sequences hit hard. They're beautifully shot, they're terrifying, and they look so seamless that you can't help but lean in and wonder how on earth Nolan pulled them off. Moving on, what's been genuinely baffling to me over the past day or so is the criticism around this new trailer. With the early teasers, people were already nitpicking things like historical accuracy, costume choices, or even casting, as if Nolan was trying to make a museum-grade reconstruction or documentary of Bronze Age Greek rather than a modern cinematic adaptation. And that's the key point here. This is a contemporary adaptation made for a global audience, shaped by the visual language and storytelling techniques that define Nolan's work and modern blockbusters in general. Of course, he's going to make changes, and of course, he's going to stylize certain elements. That's what a lot of adaptations of The Odyssey have done in their own ways. But now with the latest trailer, the criticism has pivoted to the dialogue, specifically the use of the word dad and the presence of American accents. And this feels like some people are missing the point. Nolan isn't trying to recreate ancient Greek dialects, he's making a film that communicates emotionally and clearly to a modern audience, and using contemporary language is one of the simplest and most effective ways to do that. Now sure, would I have preferred Telemachus to use the word father? Yes, but I do think it's a nitpick more than a massive problem that some are making it out to be. Nolan's approaches are similar when it comes to the costumes, the casting, and the tone, as it's about clarity to him and having a sense of cinematic rhythm. I have no issue with criticism, and if someone doesn't like Nolan's style or the filmic direction he's taking, then that's completely fair. But I do think that some of the comments online feel wildly over the top, as if the film is obligated to be accurate to every detail of a story that has existed for nearly 3,000 years and has been translated, reinterpreted, and reshaped countless times. This is a modern film adaptation of one of the oldest stories ever told, it's not a historical documentary, and it's not pretending to be. If people want to critique something, there are far more meaningful aspects to focus on, like how Nolan structures a story, how he handles the fantastical elements, the visual identity of the film, or the performances we're seeing from the cast. Those are the things that actually make or break a film. And speaking personally, I'm loving most of what we've seen in those areas. The structure of it looks ambitious, the visuals are stunning, and the performances already feel emotionally rich in the small moments we've seen. Is their dialogue the most poetic? No, it's not. But Nolan has always had this sense of practicality to his dialogue regarding moving the plot forward, and I think that's especially the case here with all the adventure ingrained into the journey of Odysseus. My slight criticism, and it really is slight, is that I would have liked to have seen a glimpse of Zendaya's Athena or more material related to the gods. Athena plays such an active role in Homer's poem that I'm naturally curious about how Nolan plans to handle her. And yes, I also wonder how he's going to fit everything into a 3-hour runtime. But what I will say is that Nolan has always been excellent at pacing in his movies, whether his films are long or short, and then with the fantastical elements that we have seen, it gives me the confidence that he can handle characters like Athena, both practically and mythologically. So while I understand having concerns about The Odyssey, I do feel that the louder criticisms are a bit misplaced. For me, the real test will be how Nolan brings all the narrative elements together from a filmmaking perspective, and based on this new trailer, I'm more optimistic than ever. So stepping back and looking at the trailer as a whole, I genuinely think that Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey is shaping up to be another classic from the filmmaker. It feels like exactly the kind of bold, atmospheric reinterpretation of Homer's epic that you'd expect from him, not a complete retelling, but a cinematic translation that leans into myth, memory, and the psychological weight of Odysseus' journey. Right from the opening frames, the trailer signals a darker, more intense vision of the poem, one that understands the emotional and thematic core of the story, rather than just its plot points. Nolan seems to be modernizing the epic without losing its soul, preserving its tone and narrative complexity, while emphasizing that heroism isn't simply about adventure or spectacle. It's about endurance, loyalty, and the slow passage of time, the things that actually define Odysseus as a character. And what excites me the most is how the trailer captures the spirit of Homer's story while still taking risks. It's cinematic, it's ambitious, and it's clearly willing to push the boundaries of what a mythological adaptation can look like in the modern era. This trailer needed to deliver not just for those who've read the poem, but for general audiences who might not know the story beyond the basics, and I think it absolutely does. It strikes that perfect balance between spectacle and soul, something Nolan has always excelled at. You can see echoes of Inception in the scale and emotional layering, Dunkirk in the potential cross-cutting tension, Interstellar in the thematic weight of time and separation, and even Oppenheimer in the psychological intensity. Christopher Nolan has a long track record of blending massive cinematic scope with deeply human storytelling, and this trailer suggests he's doing it again here. And honestly, I think this might be one of Nolan's most confident trailers, and when you pair it with the brilliant IMAX prologue we got back in December, it only heightens all the excitement. If the finished film delivers on even half of what this trailer promises, then I think we could be looking at one of the standout cinematic events, not just of this year, but of the decade. But that was my video discussing why the new trailer for Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey looks pretty incredible. Overall, I thought the new footage displayed both a good sense of the film's emotion and grandeur, showcasing the weight of Odysseus' journey, the stunning visual work, the approach to the fantastical elements, and the apocalyptic sounding score from Ludwig Göransson. Of course, this is only a trailer, but the promise of the film and the footage we've been getting is all very exciting. I thought that the original teaser was solid, I thought that the first trailer was decent, but both the IMAX prologue and this new trailer absolutely delivered, and I think it's likely that we're in for another masterclass from Nolan. But if you've already seen the new trailer for The Odyssey, then let me know down below in the comments section what you thought of it, alongside whether it gets you even more excited for Christopher Nolan's latest film. For much more videos and breakdowns, then subscribe to the channel and turn on your notifications. Also, if you enjoyed this video, remember to leave a like, rating, and follow me on social media via the links in the description. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I've been Cortex, and as always, make some noise.